Welcome to our part 2 of the celebration of our apostle's birthday. And I'm happy to come back again tonight and share with you some insights as well on my life. We're still continuing from where we left, and I hope you were blessed by part 1, and part 2 should be able to take us again to a higher level and higher dimension of certain things that we might also want to discuss. And I also want you to know that my life is more of an open book, and I believe anyone should be able to ask anything that you don't understand about what I do and how I do it. And I want to encourage our audiences, wherever they are, that please feel free to ask anything that you feel we can ask. I'm naturally a teacher, so I'm so comfortable with talking about virtually anything. I don't believe there's anything in Christianity that should be hidden. Virtually everything should be brought to the fore so that everyone can really understand where we're coming from and what we are doing. And those that are following us, Paul says, follow me because I follow Christ. And if you're going to follow any person, any man of God, anywhere, you really need to understand that person, where that person is coming from and who this person is. I believe so much that that's very, very critical for ministry and for growth and for where we're going in our lives. So please feel free to ask me anything. I will be glad to really share with you what I know, what I think, what I feel, and what I hear spiritually to your life, that I believe that will edify and grow you and give you a strong premise where you can stand on as a Christian and say, this is where I'm coming from and this is where I'm going. And as we continue tonight, we joined again by the dear team of pastors that are all around us. I'll not spend more time today talking about other things. We want to go straight into the crux of what we are here to discuss. We're discussing lessons that we can learn from what I have gone through in my life as a person and what I've also gone through as a minister of the gospel. And the processes that God has ushered me, has helped me to go through. I believe what I am sharing is only just but a tip of an iceberg. There are plenty of issues that are still yet to be explored that I believe we might also want to learn out of. And I'll try as much as possible to try and dig deep and pick up some excerpts that will help your life. Pastor Dion is here again tonight. Pastor Tene is here. Pastor Maichi Mringa is here. And Pastor Mandaza. 4 lovely men and women of God who have dedicated their lives to learning, to becoming disciples of the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. We are not yet there. We haven't touched it yet, like Paul would say. But we believe that if we keep pressing, working our own soul salvation with fear and trembling, one day we will get there. And one day we will stand with the saints and celebrate together and say we came from the dungeon, we came from the painful systems of our world, and we rose to become what we then have finally become. And we are all working together, and as we work together, we are being meshed up together. So we've become friends, we've become family, we've become one in Christ. Not that we are perfect, but we aspire for that moment of perfection that we believe that all saints will get to one day. Thank you so much and welcome to this program. All right, we're starting today to the next. What's the first question for tonight?
Thank you so much, Apostle. We want to thank you for the first session that we had, and I believe we did learn a lot from that. So we got a question from the general public. People were asking a lot of questions. One of the questions that they were asking is, how long did it take you to get to where you are right now in ministry? Did you go to a Bible school, or was it just a calling from God? If it was a calling, what gave you an assurance that it was going to work?
That's a multitude of questions, but that's interesting, and I would really want to share on that. I never got an opportunity to really go to Bible school, so I would say it was entirely a call of God that came on my life way back. But when I then begin to trace back into my life as I grew up, I now discovered that the call of God was already on my life when I was very young. But it's those moments, it's those times in life that you don't really recognize it. You don't really pick it up. And if there's not enough mentorship is a very key subject that we would need to talk about when you talk about this question. I believe every person needs to be really mentored by people that have gone ahead of time and they have experienced certain things that you begin to experience. So there are times where you go through the deep, we talk about the life of Joseph so much, and the times that he went down into the deep. There were times that he went into jail. There were times that he was betrayed, and all those times were preparatory stages where God was preparing for something that was going to come. But at times you don't know that. So now when you flip back at this stage that I am now, when you look back now, it's very easy for me now to really pick up and say, then I was 5. But I could pick up now that God was doing something on my life. Yes, when I was 10, there were things that I went through in my life that I thought were unusual. But I just brushed them aside, or everyone who was in my circle would just brush those things aside and say they're not important. And yet God was already on his work, doing something that would then impact the person that I have become now, or the calling that now the world is looked up to. So I would say the calling was there from way back then, but it's only I then grew up in the Salvation Army, and I read serious passion for the Lord. I want you to know that what happens usually to a person who is going to be called by God and be used of God. I'm trying to also, as I answer this question, I'm also trying to bring up certain issues that will help you as pastors and others out there, so that they can also pick up themselves and understand certain things that are critical in their lives, particularly if there's a call of God on your life. There is a hunger that grows in the inside of your person's life. That food is not enough to fill that. There is a hunger that you have, that even if you have a girlfriend, that relationships do not fill that gap. There is a hunger that you can have, that when you get a job, even money, when you have your money, you buy your clothes, you think, I think it's fine now, you buy your food, you want to eat it in your own room and spend your money. You think there's a moment where you think, if I get a job, I get my own money, I think I'll be happy and very satisfied. But there's a hunger in the heart of a human being that nothing in this world can fulfill. And I got to a level where when I grew up in the Salvation Army, I became a leader in the Salvation Army. I was leading a lot of people, but the hunger was still there. The hunger, the passion, the need for someone to really benefit out of my life from a greater perspective than what I was doing was always there. And I had this heart desire in me that kept growing and that kept pushing. So the more that I did what I was doing, the more the hunger increased. I had thought that if I would do this, then the hunger would go. It wouldn't go. So I got married. I thought marriage would answer that. It didn't. I got a job. I had some money. I thought money would answer that. It didn't. I spent some money. I would go for holidays. I would eat my money, go out with friends. I thought that would answer. It didn't. But there was still that hunger. I grew up in church, started to do a lot of stuff in church, all the things that we do as young people in church. I thought that would answer. It still did not answer. So there was a greater calling in the inside of a person that could only be described by the word called hunger. So So I had this massive hunger in the inside of my life that would say, I think there's more. There's always more to what I can see. And there were times that I would go back into my room alone and just, at 12 midnight or at 2, and just begin to cry. And there were times where I would listen to the word. Many preachers that I listened to, I would just listen to the word in my own room, close all doors, and listen to that and play it over and over and over again. I would still not get enough satisfaction. And now at the backside, now I know that there was something that I was calling, that was in the inside of my life, that was pushing me and driving me to be there. So I want you to know the times where you can actually have a certain hunger that is not fulfilled by anything. It's actually God who has placed that hunger in the inside of your life. And that's critical for you to then say, what is it, Lord? And it's only at that moment that I then began to digress from the systems of the church that I was in to say, I think I want God more than as much as what the church has given me, as much as what I have experienced so far as I was growing. I think there is something more than what I have received so far. And I started seeking something more than just church participation, more than just giving to God, more than just going to church, more than just wearing a uniform, more than just waiting for your death and getting buried, more than just friends and family and socializing, no more than just relationships and so forth. That all these things are fundamental, they're key, they're good, they are so right in church. In many churches we do that. But I then began to discover that I had an extra more than that. And that's when I then started to look for it. I then got to an understanding. I'm coming back to the question now. And I got to an understanding that I believed Bible study or Bible school was still not going to be enough. I needed more than it. Because in the church that I've grown up in, we had opportunities to really study the Bible and grow up as Bible students, and there was a lot that I was doing. And then I started teaching Sunday school, I started preaching in church, I started ministering to the young people. So I had all these opportunities that I was studying the Bible and then ministering in the church. And I knew that a simple Bible study or just going to a Bible school just specifically for studying and growing was still not enough. I needed God himself. I needed him. I needed to really meet him. I needed to ask him some questions. I needed to really talk to this guy and say, Lord, there are things that are not tallying. There are things that are not coming together. There are things that that are boiling in the inside. Jeremiah would say, it's just like fire. Shut up in my bones. There was this extraordinary hunger in the inside of my life that kept me pushing in the inside and kept driving. So Bible school to me really didn't make much sense for me to say, I think if I go to Bible college, I'll get something that I really need. Because I had the experience. I had opportunities to actually go and minister to pastors who were being trained. I had opportunities to really discuss with people that were being trained, and I had an overview of what it meant to go to Bible college. But it still did not resonate to the hunger and that thing that was in the inside that was still growing day in, day out. So I then sought to find it. I said to myself, if it would take me a lifetime, then so be it. I remember talking to my father one day, and my father would not even understand what I was saying. He would say, how can you just say you are walking away from the church that you've grown up in? I said, I'm looking for something. I'm looking for something. I don't know it. I can't really wrap my hands around it to say this is what I'm looking for. But there's a massive hunger in the inside of my life for something that I can't touch. For something that I can't really say I have found it. And I'm talking about it now. But I'll still tell you that at this point I haven't found it. I'll still tell you that I haven't found it. And this is one thing that gives me that drive to keep on pushing. But I have had so many satisfactions that have given me at least peace that I am in the right direction. And this is why I am now stable and pursuing it with extreme, I'm now trying to do it the right way, putting real systems in place. I'm not just, trying to just do anything. Now I'm doing specific things because now I know I'm in the right track, but I need to develop and keep growing because already now I discovered great things that I have begun that I can actually say these things have really put to rest the pain and the suffering and the struggle that I've had in my heart for a long time. I've seen people healed, and I celebrate these things like a baby, like a little baby. I've seen people get jobs, and I don't even know how to explain that. At the end of the day, I just have to have tears running down my cheeks. I cry out of so much joy because these are things that I cried for, I hungered for, I really needed. I've seen families that don't have children begin to have their own children, and they celebrate and they're happy. And I think I'll still be I'll be happier than them. At all times, I'm so joyous. I'm so I'm so happy to see people celebrate their successes and enjoy their lives and pick up themselves and do things. Young people getting married, starting their own families and building up. Now I can actually say what I really have a serious hunger for. And I know this hunger will never end until I die. Because I have a massive hunger to see humanity fulfill their desires. I have this massive hunger to see people wrap around their lives over things that they have cried for, prayed for, fasted for, worked hard to achieve. And these are things that I also love to see. I desire nothing of myself. I am so happy to see people enjoy their own lives in the Lord. I had grown up in church. I would safely say I'm one of those people who would say I was born in church. I grew up in church. I had Sunday school in church. I had my youth in church. I grew up as a young person in church and then became a leader in church, got married and so forth in church. But I think there's more to the lives of people than just church. That's me. So even if we started World Revival Ministries, to me, World Revival Ministries doesn't fulfill the desire that is in me if it just stands out as a normal church. I believe it has to really go out and mentor the lives of people until people can grasp what they want. I believe that in every person there's a hunger for something that you need. And I believe that you should get to that before you die. Achieve that thing before you die. And I believe that our church should give that premise. And I don't think we are there yet. I don't think we're there yet. I think we're still way far away from the dream that I have of people who would come to church and give their lives to God and watch their lives transform in a massive way that would fulfill their childhood dreams, things that they really want, things that they really want to achieve in their lives. So partly, as I try to answer that question, I didn't go to Bible college, but I then grew up to look for God, and along the way, God opened Himself up to me. God did. I'm so glad because God did. God revealed Himself to me. God gave me graces that I marvel at. I look back and say, who am I to receive all these things from God, directly from God? Because I didn't get an opportunity for real impartations. I do a lot of impartations to others now, but I didn't get that opportunity. God just downloaded things into my life. I sought the Lord and I found Him. I sought the Lord and I found him. And the one thing that gives me so much strength in ministry is I don't look up to any person. I don't look up to people. I don't look up to anyone. I look up to God. And God has been so faithful to really download things and speak to me and tell me what I'm supposed to do. And I've experienced so much of the revelations of God. And I get to a point where at times I virtually know literally everything that I want to know. Say, what is it that I want to know? And God just tells me. It is this, that. It might not be what I want, but that is it. At least I know. At least I understand what it means. Even if when I look at people's lives, the times where I say, God, what is it about this person? And God unveils himself. And this gives me a lot of peace and a lot of joy in my ministry. So yes, I've walked the journey of learning about God and understanding who God is, and understanding a lot of stuff. So you discover that some of the things that I teach, some of them are generic. They're coming from my experience as a Christian from way back. But there are a lot of things that I teach now that are directly downloaded. Information that I know I never got it from anyone. I know I got it specifically from God. Things that when I watch my own video, I begin to cry. Because I know I don't even know these things. But there is a massive understanding that God has just downloaded stuff into my system that I can easily pick it up, and talk about it. So maybe I've answered part of it. And the last part of it was what?
The last part was, how did you know, or what gave you assurance that ministry was going to work for you?
Nothing else but God. Ministry, I came into ministry, I would say I came into ministry by chance. I did not plan to be a pastor. I never had a dream to become a pastor, not even one day. I never had a thought that I would become. In fact, I did not want to become a pastor. When I grew up in church, pastoral was not anything that I really looked up to. It's only that when that hunger began to really eat inside me, I would sit in my car and just cry. I did not have answers to say, what is it exactly? I did not even understand myself. I did not understand what I really needed. Because everything that I would try to fulfill that hunger with was not enough. It was not making it. And everyone would tell me, why are you crying? Because all this is there for you. I said, it's not what I want. There's more to what I want than what is being put on the table for me. And I want more than this. So God himself then began to minister and tell me and instruct me on what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it. And so when I came into ministry, becoming a pastor, it was something that I did not want myself, but that God wanted. So I came into ministry specifically to fulfill what God wanted. That's the only thing that God told me, that if you do this, then your satisfaction will come. Then you will rest. Then you will have peace. And then I said, so be it. So be it. And I obeyed. But I obeyed with a lot of resistance, personal resistance, a lot of it. I really didn't want to do this. And I'd cry, so Lord, I'm doing it, but I don't want to do it. I'm just going because you said so. It's only later when I actually became a pastor and then settled down that I then began to really begin to enjoy and what a joy it has become. But when entering into it, no, not at all. Did I have assurance that it would work? Yes, I had. I had massive assurance that it would work out. God told me this thing will grow, this thing will do that, this thing was not. That's the moment that God then began to show me visions and dreams of how it would become. Saw myself praying for the sick. I saw myself preaching, teaching people, thousands of people, stadiums filled. I began to see a lot of stuff happening. Now, God was just giving me an advert, a picture of what it would become. To say, Don't worry. Don't be afraid. I'm with you to the end of the ages. And truly, he has been with me. And I truly have enjoyed myself in ministry. I've really enjoyed myself in ministry. But when I came into ministry, I had total assurance, but it was only spiritual assurance. Physically, physically it was tough. It was very difficult for me because I didn't have support systems. I didn't have people, members that would support me. I didn't have anyone really backing me up. I didn't have resources. I didn't have finances. I didn't have human capital. I didn't have nothing. You know, I was just myself. I didn't have family backup. Nothing. Just myself. You know, walking into a desert and saying, I hope there will be a river. You know, and it didn't make sense to anyone. So the people, my friends, my family, the people that were close to me that I told that now I'm going into ministry, I'm going to do this and that, they would really, they didn't laugh because it was so fearful. They really feared for me. Say, this man, I think what he's getting himself in, does he really know what he's getting himself into? Is he able to really, will he be really able to really pick up himself and say, and know, and you know, the repercussions of what he's trying to do? But there's so much peace in the inside of my life that told me that all is going to be well. So I was prepared to face the Goliath, and I did. And slowly I broke up the veil, and the things began to open up. And friends and family began joyfully, join me and say, I saw you were right all the time. And I said, truly God had told me. So I had this massive assurance spiritually, but physically there was absolutely nothing. And really, if I'm going to help young pastors, I'll still tell them, follow what God is saying to you in your heart. And when people say follow your heart, I think they really mean what? They really mean that. Because that's where God then speaks to your life and tells you the basics of what it's going to become, how it's going to become. But in your physical setups, I would say never expect things to just be flowing. If they do, thank God. We celebrate you. But really, I don't think so. I don't think things will at any time, if you're really going to be used of God, I don't think you will ever have any support systems on the ground. One, because what God does is, now I know, because what then God does is he makes sure that he hides you. He hides you. He prepares you before you are even born for ministry. Rise, you are going to become a minister, you're going to become a preacher. But he knows that if I send you like that into the world will like scavengers, tear you apart, eat you alive, destroy you quickly. So what God does is he takes you, he wraps you, like gold that has been wrapped, and then he places you into a place where you will grow. And no one will even notice that there is someone with something in the inside that's going to change the world. So that the devil does not even notice. The devil does not even notice. So we have people that become very wealthy, millionaires, billionaires, as Christians. Those people also grow up in poverty-stricken communities and systems. And the devil will just look at the whole community and say, no, nothing will come out of Nazareth. Yet he doesn't know that in Nazareth, something has already been planted by God that's going to rise up and become the gem and change the whole world. That's how God does it. He did it to Jesus, made him Christ and brought him, given birth to Mary, and take him into a dungeon, take him into nothingness, and then raise him from there, and slowly then begin to peel off the dust of this gem, and finally the diamond is rising. And when it does, it's always a shock.
It's always a shock. People can't understand. How did something so good come out of something so bad? And this is what I always teach. To say, don't look at your circumstances. Never look at your background. Because all these things, at most, it's actually God setting you up for what you're going to become. Trying to protect you and preserve you for what you are going to become. Because what you are going to become has not yet been known. It has not yet been revealed. That's what Paul says. It has not yet been revealed who we're going to become. But God, in his infinite grace, he then creates a system that protects you and covers you and makes you to grow up in unclean, unclear circumstances and situations. Yet within that, the diamond is going to come out. So never, and I would say, never, if you're really going to be something, never expect yourself to really be born and really grow up in circumstances that suit your future. Because you will easily be devoured. It's like, just for example, it's just like a young person, 3, 4, 5-year-old, who discovers that, say he's a lady, who discovers that she's beautiful. Normally, if that person, if you discover yourself that you're too beautiful at 5, you know what it means. Scavengers. Makala, they'll come from the east, from the west, they'll come from nowhere. You will not even know how they came. And at 15, this girl is already destroyed. The whole future is gone. That's how the devil does. But God tries to preserve it in such a way that you don't look so beautiful, you don't look so gifted, you don't look so talented, you don't look like you don't look like it. You don't look like it. This is why people even rejected Jesus when finally he came and said, I'm the Messiah. They said, you, of all the people that we have seen you grow. That's why Nazareth could not even accept Jesus as a Messiah. Said, we saw you grow. You can't tell us anything. We know your family. We know how you grow up. Messiahs are not born in that. And that's how the world, God has made sure that he protects his own children from the dangers that we're then going to face as we're then going to deal with what we're going to deal with. Never expect things to be easy for you, to be comfortable, to be perfect. Red carpets, white collars. I don't think those things are for people that are going to become great. You grow up in systems and situations that are very tough and very difficult. But along the way, God then peels off the dust. Slowly, but surely, making sure that protecting you, covering you, and building up that thing in the inside of you. And finally, when this thing really pops up, the world is yet to see what God was preparing through your life. I hope it does. I'm trying, but I hope it does answer partly. There's a lot to talk about, but I hope I've answered partly. I'll try to answer some more questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Apostle.
Thank you, Apostle. You've just answered the question I was going to ask. All of it. So another one arose. In your walk, trying to discover who you are or what you have become now, were you ever taken advantage of? Especially when you went to maybe men and women of God already established, who already knew that they were gifted people. Did they ever take advantage of your gifts in the process of maybe tutoring you?
I would say I have worked with a lot of men and women of God throughout my life from childhood. But I would never say that they took advantage of me. I would say for everything that they allowed me to do, it was for a reason. It was for a reason. It perfected my understanding. It grew it gave me a lot of insights that are really now helping me in ministry now. It opened up my eyes to a lot of things. To them, some of them, yes, to them, it was beneficial to them. They were benefiting out of what I was doing. But to me, I think it was good. It was all good. It gave me an opportunity to experience both sides of the coin. You know, the greatest challenge that you have when you become a pastor and a man of God is that you are one-sided. You already have a side. You know, at every story, at everything. Because they understand that you already have a side. And we all know what the Bible says about that. You know, and you are about to just tell us what the Bible was already saying. So at most times you already have a side. And if you then don't get an opportunity to experience the weird side of life, the bad side of people, you will never really have the grasp to really understand what it means. Because later on in ministry, you then discover that you have to help a lot of people. And all the people that you are helping, they are not coming from a Bible-dictated lifestyle. They are coming from a life that I think Bible because all these things are not there. There are plenty of things that are not there. And it's only something that then becomes real if you have experienced it. If you have gone through certain things in life, went through it, dealt with it, you know, faced it practically, it becomes so easy for you to really grasp and understand when other people now come up to your life and say, this is that. You know, it has given me a lot of one of the things that I really cherish in ministry is the ability to understand men as men. That men are human beings. These are human beings. These are not machines. These are not perfect people. No matter how much you teach them, write the right things, you know, mentor them, grow them, direct them, hold their hand, and actually make them drive or towards the certain direction. Men are men. They're human. They're still not going to perfect the art and really do it well. So there's always that frustration that comes out in ministry. And for a lot of pastors, this is one thing that takes them to the grave. To say, I taught this person the right thing. I told him he's supposed to do it this way. But unfortunately, he did it that way. And then it came out the wrong way. And then at most times, you're so frustrated. You're so frustrated, you have to throw tantrums. You have to push everyone outside. You know, in the church that we grew up in, you have to punish people. And in any, I would still say, at most those things are coming out of a lot of frustration to pastors, because you are then not willing to even mentor that person again. Say, I'm tired of this person, because people are people, human beings are human beings, and they will never perfect the art. If a person really perfects the art and becomes that perfect human being, I think that person is not supposed to be here. And if a person is still alive and is still kicking, expect the worst. So even if I see the best coming out of a person's life, I actually cry, because I was expecting the worst. I was expecting the worst to come out of a person's life. So I'm not tired of helping people and working with them. And I'll tribute that back to what you were talking about. I'll still bring it back to people that I saw. And they were way ahead of me in life. They were pastors, but they were not doing right. They were not doing the right things. But then it taught me to know that that's human. That's humanity. Human beings and sin, totally difficult to really separate them. They walk together until this person dies. So it's a fight, it's a battle, it's a wrestling match that goes on time after time place after place, as a person tries to perfect his or her own art, try to develop himself, grow himself, and become better and become better and become better in life. So along the way, I have benefited so much from the experiences that I've gone through with a lot of men of God, and in a lot of churches. I've had the privilege to go to my churches. At one time, I was grade 6. I'll never forget that. Yeah. And would travel from place to place. I learned a lot of stuff. But now I use all that for as experience. I grew up in a traditional church, non-Pentecostal, then went Pentecostal. I went to other Pentecostal churches. I've dealt with a lot of men of God. I have studied men of God from history, and saw that a human being can never be really, really, really perfect before God. So I have accepted that to say, I think it's part and parcel of life, of the growth process of a human being. That's why we're still very limited in terms of our success rate in our success processes. One of the reasons is because at many times we miss the mark. We don't do the right things when we're supposed to. But I really thank God for every person who God gave me. I went through their hands. I was molded by their good things and by the bad things. Everything helped me to become who I am now. And I celebrate all of them. Thank you. All right.
Thank you so much, Apostle. You have said Kuti Makaba from a traditional church coming into Pentecostal church. I've seen people struggling, like most of us talk about my traditional church. When we came into a Pentecostal church, it wasn't easy to transition from traditional to a Pentecostal church. Worse off, which pinda kuleta pastor. How did you handle the transition process?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and a lot of people ask me that, to say, how did you become? Because I really never had an opportunity to really become a real Pentecostal. I would never say I was a Pentecostal, but I attended 1 or 2 churches just to learn. God allowed me to just see how it's done and so forth. But I would never say I was a Pentecostal, and even now I don't think I am. But we have structured our ministry and our church in a Pentecostal setup, and it was tough. Was difficult. There were a lot of things that were so, speaking in tongues was a taboo in the traditional church. Just speaking in tongues, let alone gifts of the Spirit, manifestation of gifts of the Spirit, prophecy, deliverance. Not in a traditional church. Because all those things, just because waita deliverance or manifest a demon. Munakatu manifest a demon chaitonz we afano ngachipinda pa church pedu. Because our church doesn't manifest demons. Pane zviri pari zvimwe zvisiri right ngaanobatsirwa somewhere. So we had plenty of issues like that. And I would say, in essence, those were some of the things that also helped me to move into Pentecostalism. Because Pentecostalism now, it had answers to questions that I had like that. And it's one thing that we would really ask Tichikura as young people to church, why are we not speaking in tongues? And the church elders would give us, vague answers that didn't really mean much. Just say, no, our church doesn't do, And Pandiri, it didn't really make sense to say, but we need to understand, boss, do you remember Bible? We are still preaching from the same Bible. But there are verses and chapters that we are skipping. And there's no explanation for it. So I then had that drive to say, I really need to know what it means. So when I went to Pentecostal churches, I saw people speaking in tongues. I said, this is it. But how do I also become one? Becoming one, that's another ball game altogether. Seeing it being done and appreciating it as you see others do it, that's something else. Prophecy, people speaking, talking about other people, declaring things, and those things coming to pass. I would really love that. There were times that I would go on the television and spend more than 4 or 5 hours just trying to really understand how can a person stand before the church and just declare things and those things begin to come to pass. I really didn't understand all of that. But I believe also that desire then gave me an opportunity to really delve into it and really move it. I would say one of the advantages that I had because is that when I came into Pentecostalism, there was not, when we started our church, there was no much push to say we want that. We want that. We want that. When they were not even driving to say we want to understand how tongues operate, how prophecy operates, how declarations operate, how miracles happen, how deliverance. They were not even pushing for all that. They just needed the word of God. And the word of God I had. So I could really then teach them and build them up while I was also learning these things. So I had an opportunity to then learn as I teach. I was teaching what I knew, I was learning what I didn't know. And I believe even up to now, I'm still teaching what I now know, and I'm still learning what I don't know. And that process has gone on and on and on and on in my life, day after day. That's my life. Every time that I come to church, I see something that I don't know about. I start discovering things that I don't understand. I go study them. I go ask God. I go look for them from the Bible. I Google them on the internet. I see whether it has happened anywhere else in the world of ministry. And I come back with answers. It has always been my life. I'm a teacher naturally, so I look for answers. And I look for answers for the sake of myself and for the sake of the people that I lead. So slowly, it was tough, it was difficult learning the Pentecostal environment, but later on I discovered it's something that's very, very normal. It's a process of learning. And I believe every person who is coming into Pentecostalism, Achivok Traditional Church, you just have to accept yourself like that. Deal with God according to what you know. Deal with God according to what God has revealed to you. Don't worry about those things that have not been revealed to you. One day they will. One day they will. Just push. That keep pushing. Just keep probing. Just keep asking God and say, I want to understand more about tongues. I was discussing with a certain man recently who came into my office, and I was discussing with him. He was asking me a simple question like speaking in tongues. Say, I go to a Pentecostal church, and there are a lot of things that are happening there. I've been given words of prophecy that I'm going to be a pastor, I'm going to be a minister, and so forth. But he was saying, but I don't speak in tongues. But when I sleep, in my dreams, I see myself speaking in a lot of tongues, tongue twisting, jaw breaking, tongues of angels, speaking in serious spiritual language. But when I wake up, I can't. I don't know why, I don't know how. And I said, you just need to pursue. God is just showing you that this is something that is very possible. It's something that's going to happen in your life if you push yourself, if you drive yourself to it, if you look for it, if you are not uptight, if you are liberal, if you are open to new stuff. But I believe the life of a Christian should always, at all times, give you an opportunity to look for new things, for new stuff, for new revelation. And I believe revelation is progressive. Things that were preached way back, they are now being revealed in a new way. And God revealing continually. And a way watch, you can be so uptight as well to say, this is what I said last time, so I'll not change what I said. You will never move with God. God would say, don't get into the fire at one point. In the next time, he would say, go into the fire. Don't get into the fire, now go into the fire. It's revelation progressing. God working with people according to what he thinks will help them in their time zone, in their moment, developing them and growing them to become what they're supposed to become. So, and I say, continue to evolve. The real you hasn't come out. But traditional church has given you certain systems. And I think traditional churches so much, because what I've seen in the Pentecostal environment, I have discovered that administratively Pentecostal churches, most of our Pentecostal churches are not so good administratively. This is why most of our Pentecostal churches in Zimbabwe and most of our surrounding countries, Pentecostal churches cannot even build churches. They can't build buildings. They can't build universities. They can't build hospitals. They're struggling to put order and build children's homes or old people's homes. And one of the reasons is because Pentecostal churches have not mastered the art of proper administrative strategies and administrative systems. Because speaking in tongues does not build a hospital. Speaking in tongues does not build a church building. Which you cannot buy a stand because of speaking in tongues. You need to really be organized, sit down, plan, put things in place, raise money, raise funds, and you have systems, real systems that help you to do that. And I thank God for a traditional church background, because that then gave me the audacity and the strength to be able to say we need to really have an organized system. That's not just pulling down resources that are not managed well. And we have a massive management system that we have put in our churches, in all our churches. And we have a very stable financial systems that are running our organizations. And today we really celebrate because most of our churches have bought church stands. And they're building their churches now. And we're still young. We're still a very young church compared to the many Pentecostal churches that have been there for years, but that don't even have a church building or a church toilet. To say the least, but in Susu we have been able to do that. And why? Because of a traditional church background that has given me the understanding that we need to build things. We need to put structures. We need to think about the future. We need to think about our children yet unborn that will come up later and say our fathers were Christians. What did they leave unto us? We can't give them a list of speaking in tongues, the languages that we spoke. We can't give them the prophecies that we prophesied, because all those things are not valuable to them. What is valuable to them is a standpoint where they can stand and build up a vision that God is also going to be giving to them. And what is that? It's property, it's resources, it's buildings that do not decay. It's stands, church stands that they're not going to look for and try to buy. It's land, and those things are very critical. And we're leaving them that legacy to say you will start from here, and you also grow the visions that God would have given you in your time. So, I would still say to a lot of pastors that are coming, or anyone who's coming from a traditional church background, say, take the good, leave the bad, take the good, take those things that will help you to build your life and strengthen your understanding of certain things and certain systems. And particularly, one advantage that you always have is you have order. You have order, you have plan, you have vision, you have stability, you have management. Because those churches really put those things in order. They were really priority areas. And they did that. So they did that to me as well. So they gave me that. And then I went outside the church and then tried to pick up those things that they didn't have in church. To say, I also want to understand these things. And I've understood more. So I now package myself better than most Pentecostal people that start from a Pentecostal background, straight from a Pentecostal background. I believe without being sarcastic, without looking down on anyone or looking down, I love the body of Christ, I love the church. But I respect many men of God with their giftings and their talents and their callings. But I still cry when I see Pentecostal churches without buildings, but with so many members, thousands of people, and so much finances, but they don't have church stands, they don't have buildings. To me, I cry and say, if only they knew that you can't leave DVDs of the move of anointing as a legacy to your children. You can't do that. And say you will see how God moved in our time. And look how the anointing would flow in our church services. I don't believe that's we would have done justice to the generations that are coming later after us. Generations that are coming after us, they need, where did our fathers worship? And we say Pagomorine. And they come there. They also build their faith from there. And until they also then begin to see angels and see God himself and speak to him. So yes, rightly so. As much as the background, the Pentecostal church background, had its own negatives, but I'll tell you, it had a lot of positives that it impacted in my own life. And now I use that in my own ministry.